The hair will be a lot flatter by the end of this video. That is something I can guarantee. It's what happens. We are dealing with hair that I didn't wash today because it is Sunday, and Sunday has become synonymous with the day that I tend to avoid washing the hair, and also it has become something of a lazy day. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie, and today I am going to be talking about nothing in particular. So, the clock's moved forward this morning, and whilst most technology in my house happened to agree with this notion and moved an hour ahead, my body hadn't got the memo. Usually, it wakes up, and I suppose the issue was, ordinarily, I will get on my phone at some point during the night because I don't have a clock in this room, or another one of my pieces of technology, iPad, Kindle, neither of which are charged, and I'll check the time. But I didn't check the time today, and so I didn't leave my bed until 10 o'clock, which technically would have been 9 o'clock by yesterday's standards. I have not slept in so late in a while. I don't know whether it was the 2 bottles of bitter I drank last night, because I decided that I was going to treat my mum to food from the Chinese takeaway down the road, only my dad's friend was here, and I felt pretty mean about us getting food and not him getting food, so I thought, well, I'll wait. And we waited, and then he left and we ordered and it came and what have you. And I decided that I was going to have this bottle of beer because they've been sitting there since Christmas. I don't drink a lot, and I remember having this rant at Christmas that I don't see alcohol as a gift. I don't like receiving it as a gift, and I feel like when giving it as a gift, it's a bit mindless. Unless you've really thought about it and the person actually likes that, you know, like a special bottle of wine rather than just one of the cheap ones they had on offer down the supermarket. You know, where people will just go, they'll bulk buy 10 and be like, okay, we've got a gift for this person, a gift for that person. I can't be doing with it. And so these bottles of beer have sat there for ages, and there was one that had a really low percentage of alcohol. And for me, when it comes to having alcohol, it's less about the fact that it's alcoholic and more about the taste. So I have it very rarely, very sparingly. And I just fancied one. And then my mother was having one as well, and she chose Wainwright's. Can't remember what the one I had was called. But she couldn't drink it. She was too tired, so she went off to bed. And I don't like waste, and I couldn't bear the idea of this going to waste. And I was staying up for another hour because I've got into the habit of switching on Classic FM for their smooth classics from about 10 o'clock in the evening. Well, no, that's when the show starts. And listening to that for an hour, hour and a half whilst reading. And last night I was supposed to be reading This One Sky Day by Leone Ross because I need to finish this before this Thursday, as well as finishing some other books, Careless being one of them by Kirsty Capes, and Flamingo. I don't know that I'm going to finish Flamingo. If anyone has watched my previous vlog, then they will see that both Charlie and I agreed that we didn't want to read this book. She DNF'd it at page 50. I didn't get so far, but I was trusting her estimations because I hadn't liked what I had read. It's probably a very good book, and for a certain type of person, say you've appreciated Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, or something that is a bit saccharine, then you will very much appreciate this book, but it wasn't for us. So I'm not too fussed about missing that one. I am a bit annoyed because I've now watched Jen Campbell's vlog, and the 2 books I've purchased, The Bread the Devil Need and Salt Lick, she didn't rate too highly, and they're the ones that I have acquired. They're also the only 2 that I couldn't get from the library or on Audible. I actually don't know whether I could get The Bread the Devil Need on Audible, but I really like the sound of the title. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I should have been reading this last night whilst listening to Classic FM, but I wasn't. I was playing with Sally or scrolling through my phone, which has also become a really annoying habit. I never used to have this habit before of scrolling mindlessly through my phone, because it was too reminiscent of when I was on Tumblr many years ago and would spend hours trying to catch up on people's posts, and it actually put me into this big fit of depression at one time, because, and it's one of the reasons I deleted it years ago. 9 years to the day since I deleted Tumblr. Not to the day. I'm not that specific. Thank you for your specificity, Charlie, but you're completely wrong. It's 9 years since I got rid of it, and because it just left me feeling depressed. Not that the state of the world doesn't leave me feeling depressed nowadays, but I used to avoid mindlessly scrolling, but it's been happening much more recently, and I'm not happy about it. It's a habit that I would like to get rid of, especially considering I got rid of it in January, and I read tons of books in January. I also got rid of it last March when I disappeared from the internet for an entire month. Well, to be fair, that was also due in part to a mild bit of depression, but we don't talk about that. We just avoid. Anyway, so to go back, I drank my mother's beer whilst listening to Classic FM and scrolling through my phone and playing this new game that I've become mildly obsessed with, which I think is called Zen Match. You're just matching tiles, and it was very easy at the start, and now I get frustrated with it, and I find that this tends to be what happens with me, is I'll reach this point where I decide that I want to play a game, and I've been wanting to ferret out my brother's Nintendo DS from years ago, or switch on my Nintendo GameCube again, where I just want to recapture some youth. I think it's something that happens in the intermediary period between me finishing a book and releasing a book and writing the next one. I always have to have this time between that. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what is the thing within me, the process. I haven't examined it closely enough, but there's always got to be this period where I'm not working on something, where I'm reading more, I'm consuming different types of media, because during the time of writing, I feel like everything else is a waste of time, and I like to try and get rid of that feeling. But I got obsessed with piano tiles many years ago and played that. It was the one app I was so focused on, and I was playing that for 3 weeks in every spare moment of my time before I realised, actually, you're mildly addicted to this, and deleted it. And I did delete Zen Match when I first got it, and it didn't delete all my data when I downloaded it again, and I was at the level I'd finished at, and so I ended up continuing to play it. So I'm not over it yet, but I imagine I'll continue to get frustrated by losing lives on this game, and hitting paywalls, and just decide this is not worth my time. I don't want to watch all of these flaming adverts. I'm deleting it. I could return to get obsessed with Duolingo again, but that's not happened yet. So, yeah, that's me. I should say that bitter has been known to make me sleep a long time before. Many moons ago, when I'd experienced another really bad period of insomnia. I don't know whether I ever shared the story, but for about 6 months between 2013 and 2014, my insomnia was at its worst. I was not sleeping. I was actually visiting doctors about it, and got referred for a brain scan to try and see what was going wrong, because not sleeping had ended up giving me these huge migraines. I was experiencing olfactory hallucinations. We were very concerned, and got through that. I don't know what happened. Eventually they gave me sleeping pills, and they worked, but I didn't like the fact that the next day I spent the entire time in a fog. Either way, a few years after that, I had not slept in a very long time, so I went in search of the strongest beer I could find at the supermarket. I found this, and I drank it, and I won't lie, it was probably the foulest tasting bitter I have ever tasted in my life, but it knocked me out. Yes, I could have gone back to the doctor and asked for more sleeping pills, but also these sleeping pills are also an antidepressant. And you know me, I am just very wary of self-medication. It's something I'll probably get over in future, you know, as my arthritis worsens and I need to seek out further pain medication than just lying and accepting the pain that I am in. But I self-medicated with this beer and I slept, and maybe that's why last night, last night wasn't self-medication, last night was just because I fancied a drink. But I slept. And now I have to examine the fact that I slept for so long, because I feel like I wasted the morning by not actually waking up until after 10 o'clock. And I like to have at least achieved something, but that's because we know that Charlie likes to focus on what he's achieved in a day rather than accepting that sometimes you can just relax, and that's perfectly okay. I used to give myself Sundays off. And then today I decided, well, you want to... I've still not sent my book to Dane because I'm still editing it myself, working off the comments I received from Joy. So I was working on that this morning, and then I watched a vlog from Linen Librarian, who I recently discovered and whose vlogs I particularly have enjoyed, especially the one today. It had springtime nature in it, it had dogs, there was book discussions about books that I hadn't previously heard of, and it was just the sort of calming, relaxing content that I like from a reading vlog. This is saying nothing defamatory to other vloggers who have have more exciting, jolly vlogs. But at the moment, as with last year, what got me into watching all these reading vlogs is that I like them for their calming nature. And they're the sorts of vlogs I like, where they've got the music that's a bit relaxed and slow-tempoed, and there's nothing too jolting or jarring, which is something that I've come to recognise that recently I've craved in fiction more. It's why I went to the Rachel Cusks, it's why I was enjoying the Hilary Mantels last year. It's why I am enjoying the books of Jacob a bit, because you can just settle into the books and they're not going all over the place. It did kind of inspire the tone of Royally Doris, which I think is why Royally Doris is so big, but we'll talk about writing further in a minute. And then I watched a vlog from Hannah May, also very good vlog content, and I recently discovered, I can't remember the name, but this person has a lot of subscribers indeed, came up recommended, is not a booktuber, discusses art and the art that they do, and I know their first name is Fran but can't remember the second. We'll leave a link, as I say. So this week, writing-wise, I was working on a poem, which I have talked about before, called The Butcher's Boy. I did my 3rd draft, and now I'm working on my 4th draft after comments back from the writers group. With this poem, it originally got pointed out to me that I could have a very good rhythm, and there was a very good rhythm in the first stanza, but I didn't follow that rhythm with the rest of the poem. I agreed, so I went back and reworked it with a 2nd draft, and then I noticed that there could be a rhyme scheme. Now, I'm not one who goes in for rhyming. I like internal rhyme, and I like focusing on the way words sound, so assonance, alliteration, that sort of thing. But when it comes to actually having rhymes, bookending sentences, that's not something I'm here for. And the writers group weren't here for it either. They put it out, it all sounded forced, so I went back, I reworked it, I merged 2 drafts, sent it to Joy. Joy has sent her comments back, so I'm working on it again for draft 5. This is the most I've ever worked on a flaming poem, and it's because I want to do this poetry collection, which is to do, as I've said before, told you the hair would go flat, with familial experiences in farming over the years. There's quite a lot in it of the maimed animals that we have seen / experienced. There's a few quieter ones, and as I mentioned last week, I'm trying to work on more humorous ones at the moment in the style of poems that I've shared here before, one being Piss Wet Through that I shared at Christmas. but that was The Butcher's Boy, working on that again. I do have the one that I said about that my mother didn't find funny, but that's okay. I'm going to share that with the writers group this week and see what they think. They might not like it because I'm rhyming again. How does it start? I do think I mentioned it. Took a sheep for his bride so he could have a woolly jumper, is the first line. Yeah, anyway. So I'll be sharing that this week unless I come up with something else to read to the group. And then we'll be off for April, in which time I'm hoping to get some work done on the Doris book, or at least get it sent to Dane, get some reading done. Robert of Barter Hordes sent out a message saying that not enough judges had signed up for the second round of the Judges' Prize. Not enough judges had signed up for the second round of the Booktube Prize. I signed up because I got such a big fear of missing out last year, and I've found some new favourites that I can wait to discuss them with you. So yeah. Also this week had my first event in 2 years for An Heir to Murder at Holmes Chapel Library, talking to their readers group, and Joy and her husband came. He wrote a book called Unbidden, and basically the readers group works, they all bring books along that they're currently reading or have read, recommend them to each other and share them with each other. And I started things off with my book. One of the people there had read An Heir to Murder and must have got, I don't know whether there was confusion about me attending, but I really wish that she'd shared her thoughts with me, because I would have liked to have known what a person who was right there in front of me thought. But, you know, if she'd hated the book, I would have welcomed that. I would have welcomed this discussion. But I think when she saw that I was going to be discussing the book, she chose to hold back on sharing her opinion. And that's fine. She can share her opinion with the rest of the group later on. And if you're in the Holmes Chapel area, that group meets every fortnight, so they won't be meeting this Tuesday, they'll be meeting the Tuesday afterwards. And I said that I would like to book and go back with Royally Doris later in the year. Then it's not difficult to talk to the group. I got there and I went into the main library area, which is where I've always gone, and I mentioned concern to my sister, because I'd seen this sign as I was setting off saying that the road to Holmes Chapel was closed, and I thought, well, I don't know another way. And anyway, it must have just been that they'd not taken the road sign down. And the more I went, the closer I got, I was completely concerned, because like, I'm getting closer now and I've not seen this sign telling me to turn around yet or giving me the diversion. Either way, got there, parked, went inside, and I went into the room where I've always gone, which is the main library, and there was nobody in there. But I wanted to look around because I wanted to see if they had any more of the International Booker books, or if they had any of the Women's Prize books that I didn't already have. They didn't, although they had Women's Prize books, but they were ones I'd already read. Anyway, see the ladies arrive for the group and they get told to go into another room. So I was like, oh, well, I best go and introduce myself. So I went over and I said, I believe I'm meant to be in that room. And then they recognised me and they said, you should have introduced yourself. I was like, well, I was looking around anyway. And also I thought you'd recognise me, but apparently I've changed a lot in the 2.5 years since they last saw me. I was like, well, I don't think I have. I mean, I've lost a bit of weight, but I didn't think that... We've been through this before where I don't think that I look too different, but apparently other people do, which is fine. And the librarian who was there introduced me, had read the book and was asking questions, which is always fun. It's good when they're steering the conversation, especially as it's not like a proper question and answer session. And most people there had read Our Doris, so they knew the connection to the world. And so I got to read from An Heir to Murder, talk about the forthcoming Doris book, talk about my writing, but it didn't inspire me to work on another novel yet, because I'm still conflicted. I am still conflicted as to whether I go with the next Alice book, which I did talk about a bit there. I talked about it with reference to the review I've got on Goodreads that says nothing outstanding really, and I talked about how oftentimes I appreciate a negative critique because negative critique makes me think, or well, review in this case, makes me recognise that I can't please everybody, so just to write. And then I also talked about Brian from Bookish and his review of An Heir to Murder, and how he talked about it being refreshing that Alice wasn't in a relationship and how she just eats whatever she wants. Everyone's mentioned about her drinking, and I talked about this before, not recognising that when I was so much heavier, how much alcohol one person could imbibe. But I can share this because it's like going to be the main crux of the novel, is that the second Alice book begins with Alice in a relationship, and she's wanting to end the relationship when because sorry, I can see a hair and it's just annoying me. Anyway, Alice is in this relationship with a man, and she's looking to call things off with him when he says that she can't break up with him because his grandmother has just died. So she does anyway, things go awry, and then his dead grandmother turns up very much alive, and then there's a whole stolen identity plotline. And it's convoluted, it's complicated, and I still haven't properly worked out in my head how it's going to work, or whether it's even the next book that I want to write. But I know that that's what's going to happen. I know how it ends. I know who's in this book because that's just the way of things. And then I know that I have moved this story arc of what was 10 books to 5 books to then move on and just have less of this whole overarching storyline. A bit similar to the Harry Hole books, really. He has a trilogy that focus on one thing and then it spans off, and every book can be read on its own, although you do benefit from reading them sequentially until you notice the order and the way that he writes and the formula to the books. Then, as I say, writers group on Thursday. I've been doing a lot more walks with the dog. So my sister, as I said in the vlog, we came last Sunday and we went to Goit Valley. Then Sally kept waking up and getting up early in the morning because we'd done that on Sunday. So on Tuesday, we went to Mac Forest and did our long walk around there. Wednesday, I said to her, we aren't doing a long walk today. So we went back down the canal, and I considered crossing this busy main road. But as soon as we get to this busy main road, every time she turns around and hot-foots it back. So I think that I'm going to have to try and pick one of the quieter moments, walk along the canal, cross over, and then do it. I've said we need to do it in the morning just in case I get lost. And I've also recently discovered that we only get 3 hours on the car park I usually park on. I always thought it was just free all day, so I have to be mindful of that. And then Thursday, chose to go on a walk to Teg's Nose from Macclesfield Forest. And I messaged my sister Wednesday evening asking her about this walk. And apparently my father told me why I don't like this walk, but I didn't remember and didn't recall him saying to me. Anyway, it's because this is an incredibly steep walk. And coming back down, it jarred my knee. And it's just difficult descending hills with my knee. Well, with both my knees, because the bones were wearing away, so they don't work the way that knees are supposed to work. But the relaxation I feel after getting my heart pounding, sweating a lot, and reaching the top of this very, very steep incline, the relaxation is somewhat beneficial. And I did have actually quite a good day stepwise on Thursday, because I then had to come home, walk into town. Well, actually, I had to bathe, and then I had to bathe the dog because she'd rolled around in some sort of muck. Came home, walked to the writers group, walked back, and walked through the park on the way back and I realised I haven't done that in 2 years because I haven't walked that way since lockdown. So I hadn't been in the park in over a year because, oh no, maybe just under a year because we went into the park when we first got Sally, but then I've just walked everywhere else really. Because you need a long walk, and the park, it's all right for a little wander, but you can't really get many steps in. And then work. And work has been somewhat quiet this week. I don't know why. I can't explain it. We didn't hit our targets last week, and I don't know whether it's because the sun came out, because, you know, there's been some really nice spring days, and I know that if I have the day off, I don't particularly think, oh, I want to go to the shops now. I think, oh, well, the weather's nice. And in fact, I think that the last 2 years have kind of changed the habits of me. I don't know whether it's changed it for many people, but my immediate thought isn't, okay, let's do this. My immediate thought is, oh, nice day. We must experience this. Let's get out into it and go for a wander. And so the places I do wander are limited. They tend to be pretty much the same, but I don't mind that. Anyway, some books I got this week. 8 Detectives by Alex Pavesi. Was very glad to see this because I've seen it around and considered getting it from Waterstones. So I've actually only borrowed this from the bookshop. I haven't purchased it. If I like it, I'll go and I'll put the £1 in the pot for it. But we'll see. I've been told by a friend of mine who... What did she do for me? Oh! The photographer friend who's photographed a lot of promotional images for Our Doris, Indisputably Doris and Doris Ahoy, and has done them all free of charge because she's a fantastic person, said that she read this and recommends it. I'll have to read the blurb because it doesn't really give much away. All murder mysteries follow a simple set of rules. In the 1930s, Grant McAllister, a mathematics professor turned author, worked them out, hiding their secrets in a book of crime stories. Then Grant disappeared. Julia Hart has finally tracked him down. She wants to know what happened to him, but she's about to discover that a good mystery can be murder to solve. So it sounds a bit like The Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz, which I wasn't a fan of, but I do like that whole aspect of things, although it does just give you the reviews. That there does seem very much crime novel fare, doesn't it? We'll see. Also came upon Murder Before Evensong by Reverend Richard Coles, which is coming out in June of this year. Very large print, and this is a book that I need to read and return to the shop because the other person who does books wants to read it. And I also got Blood on Snow by Joe Nesbo, or Yo Nesbo as you're supposed to say. And this is a rather short one. I'll read them when I want to. It's much more about having them to read when I want to read them as opposed to reading them immediately. But these Yo Nesbo is someone I think of as an author to get and then return to the shop. So that's why I never buy them new, or I get them from the library. One moment, please. We're now not in the same position, but whatever. I've been very aware this entire time that I've had a cup of tea getting cold and I couldn't cope with it. It was making me rush. Also, Volunteer recommended Early Doors Series 1 and 2. I think there's only 2 series, which is a comedy set in a northern pub and stars a lot of familiar northern actors. And the person who recommended it says that it's a fantastic sitcom. I recognise tons of the actors, as I say, from doing other northern TV shows. And it was written by Craig Cash, who is a great writer indeed in terms of comedy. So we'll see. I watched a clip on YouTube and I have to say that I only switched it off because it was so awkward, because it was so much like the people that I've seen come into the shop, and it very much has captured the northern voice. So I think that I could possibly enjoy this. I just have to clear off that entire dressing table, put the television on top of it, put the DVD player there, and then I can watch. And that could take place in about 2 weeks, because in 2 weeks I finish work for 10 days for Easter. The dog is at the door because she's thinking it's the afternoon now, we should be going on a walk, and we will be doing, but I wait until the afternoon on Sundays because it's a bit quieter, and also because if I go too early, then I find all the people who are walking to the pub for lunch, and if I go too early, I also end up meeting the people who've gone to the pub going home. Also, it's treacle market today in Macclesfield, which means there's tons of people on the canal who've chosen to walk from wherever to go to the treacle market, which is why I haven't done my long walk today of asking my dad to drop me off a certain distance away and then walking back along the canal. What else is there to talk about? I don't know. Music-wise, is there anything new? No, although earlier this week, people on Instagram, separate people who I have no idea, I don't think, they had me concerned basically because a few people were sharing songs from 20 years ago by Amy Stud, S-T-U-D-T, released the song Just a Little Girl, released the song Misfit, and I owned that first album, and it was one of those albums that it came out around the same time as Dalton Goodrum's Innocent Eyes, because I remember having them at the same time. And so I looked, because I was concerned that it was a death sort of scenario, but no. These people were just sharing her music, and because of that I was like, okay, we're going to go and give her music a listen. And I went through them all, you know, like Ladder in My Tights was a favourite when I was younger, but Under the Thumb by Amy Stud, a song that I have probably not listened to in about 18 years, has been my earworm this week, has been the one that I have been listening to again and again. There have been a few nights where I've done nothing but listen to music, which is not productive, but we have to stop measuring our days by how productive we are. I think that's a good mindset to have. Unless you're a person who I work with who says that one should get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work straight through to midnight in order to achieve the money one needs in order to afford a house, but that's a different matter entirely. Although, you know, this has been a week for having to explain to people that I am, you know, a mildly arthritic, to try and explain why I can't do certain things, or why it gets to about 3 o'clock every day and I need to rest, which I hate about my body, and I think that everybody else can understand as well. But when you spend the majority of your day stood up in a job, and it comes time, so say you've been stood up for 6 or 7 hours, and you're on knees that are disintegrating and hips where the bone has eroded, you're going to get to a part of the day where you're like, do you know what? I do need just a little bit of a sit down. If it's just 10 minutes, just allow me 10 minutes just to go and sit in that corner over there and just decompose for a bit. And yes, I'm aware the word is decompress, but I've said decompose for too long now. I've decided I'm just going to accept it. It's who I am as a human being. I say decompose, and that's we have to live with that. Sorry, the tea, I can't let it go cold. Anyway, plans for this week are, we're going to finish reading this one, Sky Day. I wanted to read it all today, but that's not happened. I also wanted to read Heaven by Hoeko. I wanted to read Heaven by Mieko Kawakami today. That's not happened. That'll have to be a Tuesday book, but I want to read this one, Sky Day, this week. I want to finish the books of Jacob before we get to the end of March. I have 348 pages left of this book. hopefully, you know, I keep saying I'll read 100 pages a day and finish it. That's about as many days as I've got left if I'm trying to read everything else as well. I think Tuesday will just have to be a day of reading, maybe Wednesday as well. Careless by Kirsty Capes has to be returned to the library, so they're the 3 books that I'm focusing on this week. Flamingo can be returned unread. I best look at these 2 International Book of Books and see, oh, well, actually I should look at that as well. I've got 3 International Book of Books here. Hopefully they're not wanted back at the library. Hopefully my town doesn't care about that. Read Build Your House Around My Body this week by Violet Cooper Smith, new favourite, and there's a vlog about this that I'll edit one day. And then I have all the other books from the library that I previously got and still haven't read. So, you know, well done, Charlie. Got a lot of work to be getting on with there. I have this issue that every single day so far, this last month, I've brought a new book into this house. Not necessarily paid for, borrowed from the library or borrowed from work. Or borrowed from friends. And I just have not got around to reading any of them. Which is just says a lot about who I am as a human being. If we could go back to having the reading potential of Charlie back in January, that'd be good. But that would mean fewer videos, and I like making videos. But they take a lot to edit. You're currently on a fucking bookcase, of which, let me count now. So, we have... You're in a bookcase of which I've read 7 books out of about a potential 30. And the other side's the same, because this is like a TBR shelf. The same as my new TBR basket. Anyway, that's me. I am going to stop things here because I've waffled on for nearly 3/4 of an hour, and, well, who needs that in the life when I'm not actually talking about anything that interests you at all. It's incredibly self-indulgent, selfish, arrogant, that other word I like, obstinate, I don't know. Anyway, it's me. I've lost 4 subscribers since my last video. How many could I lose today? Answers on a postcard, please. If you've read any of the books that I've discussed in this video, I've discussed them, and it's not one of those videos. What the heck are you doing, Charlie? If you want to talk about out of talked about here, then please feel free to do so in the comments. Do let me know what you're reading, what you're writing, what you're watching, what you're listening to. How's your day been? How's your week been? What you're getting up to? All that sort of stuff. And if you got out of this video, let me know. Because until next time, that is